Okay, as you can see, everything, all the fabric's prepared, and there's the moulds all ready to go as well. Okay, let's get on with the layup. Okay, as you can see, we've got the two nose moulds, two halves of the nose mould here. Different plane, but the things works the same. I always have the nose pointing to the left. That way I have the cloth laying up on both sides and tapering away at the back of the mould, and when I turn it over I know that both halves will have the overlap in the same place, if you follow what I mean. So once you get into a system, it pays to stick with it. Okay, the first thing to do is, I've already done it really, but you mix up a bit of an ordinary epoxy and add a bit of colloidal silica with it, and any sort of tight curves or edges, anything like that, just squeeze a bit in there with your finger. Okay, in case you're wondering, I've got barrier cream on. Don't like gloves much, so I use barrier cream. Okay, next, give the inside of the mould a coat with epoxy, just a light coat so as it's covered. Take the cloth and we want to lay it in so as the back edge ends up flush. Doesn't matter about the rest of it for now, as long as we get that back edge flush. You find that you can squidge it around on the epoxy, as long as you keep just that edge touching. So, hopefully you can see I'm just gradually laying it in there and attaching it just to that edge. Okay, you can see just flush on the edge there. Okay, now without pulling it off of that edge, we gradually work the rest of the fiberglass into there. Get it into contact with the mould surface. As soon as it's there, it will start soaking up the epoxy that we've already painted on. Okay, now you can see any white bits are where the cloth is dry, and the black bits is where it's wetted out, so it's pretty easy to see where a little bit more resin is needed. The idea is to replace all the air with epoxy. Don't have to worry about getting too much epoxy on at the moment, so we've got more layers to go on, and that will just soak up the cloth. It's always good to wet out fabric from both sides. Makes it happen much faster. Makes it easier to wet out and more effective. Just work it all in to get those air bubbles out. And then, supporting the fabric with my fingers, I just wet out this edge that's sticking up. This will be the overlap or the seam. Okay, and this all looks nice and white in there. So we'll get the next layer of fabric. Now this one we're going to put on 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch below the edge of the mould. So I'll lay it in there and then bring it up a bit closer so as you can see what I mean. There you go, can you see that? It's just below the edge. And the same as before, working from that edge gradually. Bring it in contact with the edge of with the surface of the mould. Once it's there, you can see immediately that it starts soaking up. Yeah, you see, it's already. You see where it's starting to go dark. That's where it's soaking up the epoxy from the layer below. Okay, we've got a little bit too much cloth on this front edge, so okay, same as before. Wet out all the dry spots. Obviously this is a very easy shape. I'm just using this one because it's quick, otherwise you'll end up downloading a mega size file. You don't want that. Okay. Same as before, wet out the edges again. It's always good to wet out the front of any overhanging fabric as well that you need to trim after. If it's nicely wetted out, it makes it much easier to cut when it's green. Like the third layer in, this is a 4-ounce glass is the first layer, and then 2 layers of 6-ounce glass on the top. It's the first layup for this mould, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, this layer of fabric, another, if you can see the edge, see the first layer is flush with the mould, the next layer is 1/4 to 3/8 down, so we want the next one another 1/4 of an inch below that one, which will consequently make this edge come up higher. That will give us the tapered seam. Again, just need to trim. bit off there. Love these curved scissors, they're brilliant. A little bit expensive, but okay, again, wet out the dark bits. I really don't think I've got enough epoxy. Okay, just do the same again, wet out the take the cloth that's sticking up. Okay, you're nearly ready to join. So trim off this overhang here with the scissors. Just makes it easier then to get access inside. Get to clean them off. Okay, I'm ready to start joining the two halves together now. What we want to do is make sure this side is nice and wet, the side farthest away from me, that is flush, and then give a good layer on the outside of this sticking up piece, and even down onto the flange. This is the bit you need to get right, so as you don't have a big gap in your seam. Give that a nice dollop. What you're really doing is creating flashing. That's the glass that's sticking out. It will get trapped between the two mould halves when it gets put together. Seems a bit strange. I always thought that was a very strange thing to do. I always wanted to wet out this side with some thickened epoxy, but it actually works better to wet out this side. Much better, through trial and error. Never seen anybody else do it that way, but it's the way that I do it. Okay, and you see that I'm actually getting it onto the edge of the mould as well as onto the glass. And as I say, that will fill up the gaps. Well, hopefully. So when I pop it open, you'll see what I mean. Okay, now remember, we've got two halves there with the flange sticking up here and here. So when we turn them over, then we've got two opposites, and we just need to put them together. They should clip in place. Have a little look inside with a torch to make sure that everything is as it should be. Yeah, that's fine. Sometimes you get one of the seams gets trapped or something. Okay, let's put in the bolts, tighten it up. Now we use a seam roller, which is just a piece of metal with a little roller on the end, sealed off with a bit of epoxy, and a washer. And we put this over the seams to consolidate. Yeah, and run it in and out and consolidate the seams nicely. It's handy to have a little torch as well at the same time when you're doing this. And there we go. I'll see if I can get a shot of it. Yeah, there you can see inside. It's all consolidated, all squashed together with that little roller. And the last thing I do is pour that last little bit of epoxy, just a few drops, and try to get it to go right into the bottom, in case there's a little bit of lacking in cloth around the nose, so that will just strengthen the nose up a little bit. Some people put chopped strand glass in there, that sort of thing, but I find for me just running a small bit of epoxy in there works. Okay, just need to leave it alone for 2 or 3 days now, stored in a warm place with the nose pointing down, so as that epoxy runs to the bottom and sets.